and expect you to do it. And Joe, it's good to see you again. Joe was kind enough not to mention that he and I worked out together at the hotel. I will tell you that Joe was working a lot harder than I was on that machine, and also that he worked a lot longer on that machine than I did. And Randall, I want to just make a point about the RECs and the extraordinary work that RECs do throughout the country. This is one of the great success stories of America. Folks who understood the necessity of embracing new technology back in the 30s and 40s when maybe it didn't seem like the money was there, and maybe it didn't seem like it made a lot of sense in a recession or depressionary time. But the folks in rural America believed in themselves and believed in their families and their communities. They made the investment, and look what it has done. It has helped to produce the most productive agriculture in the world. If you think about the capacity of American agriculture, back in the 30s we were just barely making it. Just barely producing enough for ourselves, and in some cases not enough. Today America feeds not only itself but the world. We continue to export a lot of our goods and products overseas, and we enjoy a surplus in agriculture because of the hard work of our farmers and ranchers. That helps to create jobs at home, and it does not happen without the power, the electricity to be able to do what is done on the farm. So RECs are extremely important, and Sybil, thank you for giving us this opportunity to be here and sharing with us your story about how important it is to you to serve your customers, the farmers, in a fair and honest way, and how difficult it is if you don't have that technology to make that judgment or choice about what price to fix when you may be too high or too low. You want to be accurate, you need the technology to do that. And Randy Gore, I don't know, I suppose you will expect a raise after this thing. Don't be counting your chickens until they're beyond hatching. But Randy, we really appreciate your service. J.B. Martin's here as our state conservationist, and Aaron Martin, who's our FSA state director, is also with us today, and we're proud of the USDA team, and it is a team. And I also want to thank all of you for being here. You know, when you're the last person on the program to speak, virtually everybody has said everything that needs to be said. You've heard about the importance of technology to farmers, having real-time information on markets and weather. You've heard about the importance of small business owners having access to broadband so they can extend their markets beyond a local market to a regional or global market. You've heard about the importance that it plays in education, being able to give youngsters an opportunity to access that course that will allow them to do a better job in school and ultimately do a better job in college and beyond. You've obviously heard about the important work that this will do for healthcare, how someone in a small rural hospital will be able to be connected to a tertiary care center and being taken care of without having to travel hundreds of miles for healthcare services. And you've also heard the significance that this technology has for public safety. You all understand and appreciate severe weather circumstances, and there are times when law enforcement needs to work together. They need to be able to communicate. This provides that opportunity. So you've heard all of that. But maybe what you haven't heard is the role that your congressman played in all of this. And I want to tell you this story because I think it's important for folks to know, because it does make a difference. So when the Recovery Act was originally formulated, the theory was that this was a technology that the Commerce Department understood and appreciated, because the Commerce Department is heavily involved with the federal communications folks and telecommunications. And so the theory was that the Commerce Department would receive the money and then make decisions about where the money would be spent. And the Commerce Department understood that its strength was in the middle mile projects that Joe talked about, the sort of the larger networking opportunities. But Mike McIntyre was thinking about that student in the classroom who was frustrated he couldn't take advanced placement English because his rural school couldn't afford the teacher. And he was probably thinking about Sybil, because she's on his advisory committee, how she really was troubled every night whether she did right by farmers. And he was thinking about that hospital administrator that talked to him about how difficult it was to get tertiary care facilities to respond to patients on a timely basis, and in some cases life and death matter. And so he said to himself, you know, it's not quite right for the Commerce Department to get this entire opportunity. It is important for USDA and rural development to be engaged in the RUS because they provide rural utility service. They ought to be part of this. And so with his position of authority as the committee of the subcommittee on rural development, he said, just a second here, before we start giving Commerce this opportunity, let us have a debate and a conversation within our ranks here in the House of Representatives about whether or not agriculture and the Department of Agriculture should be given an opportunity to connect people where they live and where they work and where they go to school and where they need health care and where they need public safety services. And so he went into with his colleagues, and he talked to folks on the Republican side and the Democratic side, and he got an agreement from the House of Representatives. He and he alone got this agreement to allow the U.S. Department of Agriculture to receive a portion of this money. Now then, some folks in urban centers said, well, that's great, Mike McIntyre, glad you did that, but you know what, it's going to go over to the Senate, and there's just no way you're going to be able to keep it. In fact, the New York Times opined that. And so this congressman did not quit. He went over, he talked to his colleagues in the Senate, he said, you really have to have balance here. It's all well and good to have middle mile projects, but if they can't be connected in last mile projects, what good does it do? And so the Senate said, you know, you've got a point, signed into law by the President, and USDA received resources. Let me tell you what those resources have meant to the state of Carolina because of this man's work. Because he fought for last mile projects, the state of North Carolina received $146 million of projects. That's going to help 126,000 residents who live in this great state, over 10,000 businesses like Civils, and 508 anchor institutions like those schools, hospitals, police stations, libraries, community facilities. All because one guy understood and knew that it was important. And why did he know that? Because you told him. You told him. He travels around to coffee shops, he travels around and has town meetings, and he listens to folks, and he hears, and he incorporates what he hears, and he takes it back to Washington. Now that's a story that you have to understand is important. Because not only did Mike McIntyre help the state of North Carolina and his congressional district, as he should, but he also made a fundamental difference in rural America. Because instead of all of the projects going to middle mile, we had 320 projects nationally that were awarded. That's going to help 2.7 million households in rural America. It's going to impact 6.8 million people and have access to that real-time information that Sybil talked about. It's going to help over 364,000 small businesses be able to expand their market opportunities. It's going to help 32,000 anchor institutions, schools, libraries, hospitals, police stations all across rural America. And it provides the foundation and a strong pillar for building a new and revitalized rural economy. Because when you have broadband access and you combine that with what we're doing in biofuels and bioenergy, and combine that with what we're doing in trying to link local producers with local consumers so that we have more markets, and you combine it with what we're doing in expanded exports and what we're doing in conservation to make outdoor recreation more available to people so we can encourage more of their resources being spent in rural America, you have a new opportunity to create jobs. And you have the opportunity for moms and dads and grandmoms and granddads to be able to sit down with their children and grandchildren and say to them with conviction that there is opportunity here in rural America, in rural North Carolina, in your small town. You don't have to go anywhere else to recognize and appreciate the American dream. So you bet I'm here. I'm here because this one guy listened to the people who elected him, went to Congress, and did the right thing. And today, millions of people across the country and thousands of people in this state are going to benefit. So Mike McIntyre, thank you for what you did for us.